My most important takeaway from all of those plannings is less is more. The fewer rocks, the better. So 4 is better than 5, 3 is better than 4, 2 is better than 3. That's been my experience.
Welcome back to the Sterling Family Law Show, the podcast designed to help family attorneys build the firm of their dreams. Today, we have a very special episode. We brought in the president of our own law firm, Jeff Curlin, to talk to us about the annual planning process. How do we think about planning for the next year ahead? What metrics do we look at? Who's in the room? What is the agenda? Make sure to check this episode out as you go in to thinking about 2026 for your family law firm. Gentlemen, welcome back. We have a very special episode today. We are going to be talking about one of the most important meetings that your law firm should conduct each and every year, and that is the annual planning meeting for the next year ahead. Jeff, talk to us about how you think about annual planning for the firm, what's involved, and then we can go into the details of the ins and outs.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. For us, it's multifaceted. We have obviously just growth. We're very much in growth mode. We have a pretty good idea coming into like right now into this year what we think we can do growth wise next year. So it's just all that's related to growth. Like, okay, how are we going to handle all the calls that are coming in? How are we going to handle the follow up? How are we going to handle the actual selling of it? How are we going to handle the management of the files? So we start with where we think we'll end up, top line revenue wise, and reverse engineer like what are all the things that have to happen for us to actually be able to accomplish a revenue side. And then we always have projects going on. What else are we pushing forward? Initiatives where it could be for employees, it could be for our technology stack, it could be what have you. We're obviously in continuous improvement mode as well, and we'll have some rocks associated with that. And the team, we asked in our case, the whole leadership team to come prepared with, what's working, what's not working, what's confusing, what's broken, what's missing, that sort of thing. And a lot of good fodder comes out of that, and some rocks usually come out of that as well.
Love it. So it really sounds like you start with data. You start with the end in mind. Where do we want to be? And then how are we going to get there?
Yeah, exactly.
Talk to us a little bit about that data that you look at.
Yeah, we have the luxury of we understand our client acquisition waterfall very well. So we know how many leads are coming in. We know what that lead flow is. We know it by region. We know what our answer rate is. We know of those leads that come in, roughly what percentage are usually quality leads. We know what our set rate is. So leads come in. We know what rate we're going to be able to sell a consult or get someone to say, yes, I'll meet with an attorney or a sales rep for a consult. We know what percentage shows up. And then we know from all that, all those costs that go into that, when you end up with somebody this is truly a qualified lead, we know what our qualified lead cost is. So that for budgeting purposes, if we know, hey, we want to grow by 17%, we're probably going to need 17% more qualified leads. We can calculate that cost. And then goes into the consult room. We know what our close rates are by region. And then we know where like value per client on average, what is that? And then value per day, which then allows us with that information, what is our cost per agreement? So total sales, total marketing cost, everything that goes into that. We land an agreement. We know what the value of that agreement is relative to the costs associated with winning that. And we can use that for budgeting as well. And we will set targets to improve each one of these. So we will, there's a great book, Great CEOs Are Lazy. It talks about where are the kinks in the hose. There's always a kink in the hose, unless you're static. If you're dynamic and you're growing, you're going to always unearth another kink. It could be your answer rate. It could be you're in your consult room. It could be wherever, and you're always constantly moving. And this happens throughout the year. This isn't just in planning, but addressing those kinks and making sure that you free those up, and that causes the flow of clients coming in to speed up until it hits the next kink. Then you address that.
Love it. And so step one is really understanding your data. Jeff mentioned something that we use called our waterfall. And if you don't know what that is, or you want to know more about it, leave a note in the comments and we'll send you a template. But once you have that and you're looking at it throughout the year, you're now starting to think about next year. You mentioned you bring your entire leadership into one room. Is this 1 day, 2 days? Give us some preview of what that agenda looks like.
Yeah, it's at least one full day. Our quarterly ones are one full day. Our annual ones are usually 1.5 days. And some of that's just some team building stuff, right? Just fun for the team. But again, we come prepared. Everyone comes to answer those questions that I just mentioned before. We also, every quarter, we have an advocacy meeting where we have members throughout the whole organization. They come prepared to answer the same questions we just had, like what were the pain points for them. We bring those to the leadership team and we go over that whole list of concerns. We go over our current rocks. How are we finishing off the year? We go over the financial plan. Like my CFO and I, we will come up with what we think the top line and bottom line financial plan will be. We'll present that to the whole team, and that takes a while because we go into quite a bit of detail by region, by in the human resource department, in the sales department, in the intake, what have you. We explain that to them, make sure they understand it. Do they have any questions? So we spend a lot of time just going over metrics, going over information, laying the groundwork for a discussion to get into strategy. Like, okay, how are we going to accomplish this?
Jeff, let me double tap on that financial preparation that you and Todd, the CFO, go through. So the budgeting process is what we call it, right? Where you'll start to, or he will start to put together a proposed budget for the upcoming year, and look at obviously the performance over the last couple of years to craft that budget and growth. Can you explain a little bit more about how he puts that together, how long it takes, how many drafts back and forth are you going through with him before you present it to the ELT?
Yeah, absolutely. He will start with, he and I will wrestle through what do we think our top line will be, and we have to have some reason for believing what it'll be. And right now, I mean, we're projecting to be where we pretty confident we'll be next year, plus or minus. We start with that and then back into, okay, we know what our collections per attorney is. So if we're going to grow by $3 million, how many more attorneys is that going to mean? How many more paralegals is that going to mean? What are the other wants? We have a law clerk program right now where we have multiple law clerks in each region. So beyond just the pro rata, you have revenue coming in, you're going to have pro rata expenses in a lot of different categories that just normally go into your cost of sales. You've got the below the line cost. What else do we want to do for employee appreciation? What other hires are we looking at in the corporate side? We usually start with what we think the top line will be. We throw all the desired cost into it, and then he and I look at it and go, okay, where does that have us netting out from a net income or an EBITDA standpoint? And then we do some rationalization. I'll kind of
Start
have,
high, include everything,
yep,
and then whittle down from there.
start there and then go, okay, well, we can't afford all of this unless we do $1 million more in sales. We can't afford all of this. Okay. So, and a lot of those things involve timing, right? You're not going to hire everybody on day one. So we literally go, okay, we're probably going to hire 7 more attorneys, but 2 are going to be in January, 3 are going to be in March, the other are going to be in June, what have you. And make sure it's appropriate and you're guessing on timing, but it's an educated guess. And the same thing with salespeople and intake, quality control, what have you. But yeah, throw it all in there. See what does that look like, and then where do we need to prune? What are the have to haves? Well, we have to have attorneys, we have to have paralegals, and what are the want to haves? Well, we'd love to do this, whatever extracurricular things. Those are things that maybe we'll have in our back pocket, but we won't put it in the budget. We won't commit to doing it until we know we can afford it.
Does Todd start on that in like September?
Yeah. Yeah, he does. I mean, you have to have a fair amount of the year going by and have a pretty good idea how the next year is going to end up. But yeah, he starts that. We're right in the process now of finalizing that, and we'll be discussing it with Jeff Hughes here shortly, and then we will present that to the leadership team at planning.
So Jeff, also explain how you go to marketing, because marketing drives a lot of the budget for next year, because that's going to be leads that we plug into the waterfall that tells us how many clients we're going to get. So how do you interface with marketing and prepping that budget?
Yeah, great question. We share it. We share it by month. So we'll have 5 regions. So we will share 5 regions in all 12 months where what we think the growth will look like, where we need the lead volume to be, and what we think we'll be able to handle. And we get that over to our partners at Rocket Clicks. and they plan accordingly. So we're like, they're actually waiting for that right now from us. So um, yeah, it's very, very entwined because it starts with leads, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I think we know that about over 86% of the revenue driven into Sterling is from the website. And so I think we're a little unique in that, and some other firms, leveraging more referrals or other resources or sources of leads. But for us, it is very much how many leads do we need to drive in order to get to the revenue numbers we're trying to achieve.
Yep. Yeah, and it's based on assumptions like all the waterfall conversion rates I mentioned, the assumptions of value per agreement, and all those things are dynamic. Our values are sometimes are going up, which is cost of inflation. Hopefully our metrics are getting better. So in throughout the year, like we do now, we work with Rocket Clicks, and we sometimes throttle up and throttle down in different regions depending on our flow, because you can have too many leads. If you get too many leads at the wrong time, it can exacerbate a problem and actually cause you to close less agreements. It seems counterintuitive, but it absolutely will happen. So we want the right amount of leads at the right time.
We have is that when marketing works, other things break. And if you don't have a waterfall, you're not monitoring the lead inflow into your intake team and their answer rate and callback rate. Well, then they are going to get overwhelmed. You are going to lose that lead quality and ultimately hurt your reputation.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the significant changes that we've made in our budgeting and forecast and planning process, especially on the yearly basis, was shifting away from having marketing drive the entire process to now it being a player in the process. So before Tony and I would, okay, how many leads can we drive over the next year? And then we would say, okay, well, let's go out and hire that many people to support those leads. And that would be the process, rather than, okay, let's look at where we want to be and what will we need from marketing in order to get there. That sounds like a subtle change, and maybe it is a subtle change, but it was a significant improvement to our overall results. And so, I mean, looking back, Jeff, you and Todd forecasted this year, what was it, 17.5 million, I think, or 17 million, and then we're going to hit that within a few hundred grand based over the course of the year. So it's really dialed in planning that they've been able to put together. So we're plus or minus a few percentage points over the course of an entire year, which is really, really good with our scale and the moving pieces we've got in different states.
And that predictability allows you to forecast and plan with a lot of confidence and hire, because we're hiring attorneys way in advance of needing them. And you can only do that if you have a lot of confidence in your forecasting.
Yeah, really goes back to starting with data. I want to get back to the agenda just to help people get a picture of what it takes to have a successful planning. We talked about gathering the data, having the meetings before the meetings, getting to the meeting, having the right people there, um, presenting financials. As you present financials, what happens next?
We start going into what do we all need to make sure we hit these numbers that we're projecting, because we're projecting growth, fairly significant growth. What will break by doing this, by growing at this rate, and rationalize that and talk about that as a team
So,
and
for
collaborate.
example, your head of intake could be sitting there and you're saying, "Hey, we're going to add 5 more heads to the intake team." And
Yeah,
she may be thinking, "Wait a second, we need another assistant manager, or that's going to
exactly.
be too many direct reports." And so that's when that issue would surface.
That's exactly. And to be fair, we're doing as much of that as we can in advance. So to your point, we're meeting with Mary, our sales manager, who oversees the sales team and intake, and she's already answering those questions, or she's coming back with, well, here's all the things I would like. I think I'll need 2 more leads. I think I'll need this, in addition to just the pro rata, like I said, cost of sales. So I'm going to grow by 17%. I need 17% more intake people. Well, this could be in addition to that, because you reach a tipping point where, hey, this one person can't manage all these people. We need to add another. So we'll put all those things in. We'll talk about them, and then we'll go, what else are we missing with the whole team?
My partner, Tony Carls, just released the actual blueprint of how we grew Sterling Lawyers from 0 to 17 million. His book is called The Waterfall Method. This isn't theory. This is our actual playbook that we still use today, every single day in our huddle. The link is in the show notes below if you want to get it. And if you order before the end of October, you will get free shipping. Jeff, who's in the room for this planning?
For us, it's the entire executive leadership team. So myself, our CFO, our head of HR, who's responsible for all the recruiting, our two managing partners, one primarily oversees Wisconsin, one oversees Illinois, our sales manager, our operations director.
And do you lead the meeting, Jeff, or do you have someone come in and lead it so you can participate?
I lead it. Kelly, who's our project manager, she will facilitate parts of it, but generally I lead it. I kick it off. I try and come up with something inspirational, get them excited about growth. Thankfully, our team is super excited about growth, and that's why they're on the team. So they're looking their chops at, oh my gosh, we're going to grow by this much. We're going to have this many attorneys, and we're going to conquer the world. We get all excited and then get into the nitty gritty. You want it to be fun too. You don't want it to just be this stale planning meeting. We should all leave there really jacked up. Like, yeah, we can do this. We have a solid plan that we all weighed in on. We all agree with it. We're locked arms. We're all going to, win or fail together in this.
That's great. I think that's a really, really important part, is that if you're a firm that's looking to grow, you need buy-in from your entire staff. And so building that at the beginning of the meeting so that everyone's aligned as you're going through what it's going to take is very important.
Yeah, you could have people, and I've experienced this in previous lives, that they maybe it's not even conscious, but subconsciously they don't want to grow. They have a fear of growth. They have a fear of something that they're going to be exposed as not a great leader or whatever, and they end up sabotaging the conversation, and they just become very unproductive because they're just coming from a place of fear. So making sure you got the right people in the right seats in that room is super important, or it could be a very not fun meeting.
Was it always the leadership team? And did you ever add anyone or subtract someone based on that scenario playing out?
Yeah, we've had to help one or two people that were on a leadership team years ago, find something different. They just weren't in the right seat. And sometimes like I said, it's just out of fear. They're just not in a good place. Sometimes it's just they're really not the person. We don't have the perfect role for them, and they're not in a place where they can really make a big impact and be a productive member of the team. And we just help them find something else.
So the thing I really appreciate is all the work that happens before this meeting, right? This meeting is kind of the culmination of all the other meetings that you've had, where everything's kind of already been sold in, and now you're just working through the minute details. Would that be true to say?
Yeah, it is. And our planning meetings are probably shorter than a lot of meetings. In fact, our planning meetings are shorter than they used to be. We go over our metrics every single day. Every single day, we spend 5 minutes and we go over each waterfall in every region. We share our financials, our P&L with our leadership team every single month. Both a summary view on 1 week when we get the flat, we call it a flash report. And then the week after that, we get into the minutia and where the variance is. So the team is very well informed. We're not having to start from scratch to educate them in half a day in planning so that we can have a constructive conversation. They're very aware of where we're at.
That's great. Okay, so I just want to make sure we stay on the agenda of the day. You have presented financials. The team has worked through some of the kinks and how that financial goal is going to impact the operations of the firm. Is there anything else that happens on that day that is worth noting?
Yeah, everyone comes with ideas and things they would like done. We have some big initiatives going on, a client portal, some changes in our case management system that would just be a little bit more automated, some dashboards and things like, things that aren't, we have to have them, but we want to have them. They make our lives easier. And we put them all in a list, and then we go through a voting process because we want to come up with, we kind of usually stop at 5 rocks. I think if you have more than 5 rocks, you can't focus. You can barely focus on 5 rocks, but 5 rocks you can focus on.
If everything is an initiative, nothing is.
Yeah, exactly. So we vote and we wrestle and we advocate, and it's fun because sometimes someone's rock won't get picked, and they'll just like, can I just say a little bit more about this and just advocate it? And we've changed minds doing that. One of our managing partners is a really good arguer. Imagine that.
So you don't it's one thing that I've seen over the years is sometimes a leadership team will say, "Okay, that's not a rock." But everyone in the room knows, well, it's going to get done anyway. Like we're going to do it anyway. How do you stop that from happening, or what have you done to curb that in the past to keep your team focused?
Sometimes things just are, it's just a normal course of business. Like, okay, we can call that a rock and make ourselves feel good, like we got something accomplished, but we're going to do that regardless. To me, a rock is something that this is a big deal. Come hell or high water, we're going to get this done, and we're going to present this to the organization that we met as leadership team. We brought the advocacy information to this team. We heard from you. This is what we're going to do. These are the 5 things we're going to focus on this quarter or this year, and we put it out there because we want you to hold us accountable. So it means that that's that important. And some things, it's like if it's just going to happen through normal course of business, I don't know. You could present it that way, but I wouldn't present it as a rock. I want people to know that we are focused, we're serious, we're going to get these things done, and then we report. How did we do every quarter? How did we do on the rocks and the things we said we were going to get done?
To me, the most powerful part of that for our listeners is that it becomes a lens for prioritization. If we are only going to do one thing today, or this month, or this quarter, or this year, that gives us a guide to leverage to say, hey, we decided that these 5 things are the most important things that we're going to do this year. And so it helps, maintain distractions, right?
Yeah. I don't attend the plannings anymore, but after having watched you do them, Jeff, and of course Tony and I doing them for a decade together, my most important takeaway from all of those plannings is less is more. The fewer rocks, the better. So 4 is better than 5, 3 is better than 4, 2 is better than 3. That's been my experience.
Yeah. And to add to that, Jeff, a lot of these rocks, we try to make them like SMART goals, right? Like you can truly measure them, you can report on them, you can articulate what they are. A lot of the rocks have to be broken up. Like, what are we literally going to get done in the next quarter? We're not going to have this whole thing done and deployed in one quarter. Okay, well, this quarter we're going to go out and we're just going to do some beta. We're going to create something. Q2 we're going to do some beta testing. Q3 we're going to launch it, what have you. But break it into chunks that are truly achievable. Still hard, but realistic. Because a lot of times we get in there and it's easy to put things down on paper and go, yeah, we can get that done. And then we get caught up in life, especially after planning when all our inboxes are packed full again. And you get behind and you don't get them done. You're like, ugh.
Yeah, a few really key lessons there. One, you're doing annual planning in holiday season. So people are going to be excited and amped up and commit to things. And in reality, you lose weeks of productivity during the holidays. And then two, as you're thinking about annual planning, right, you're building annual goals that probably will break up into quarterly rocks. And so I used to live in this world like, well, if we don't get the rock done this quarter, it's not done. Well, in reality, we didn't do a great job planning. This was a bigger rock than a quarter's worth of work. We need to go back and decide what is the things about this goal that we can actually get done over these 90 days.
Yeah, exactly. And are you going to feel good? I mean, that's a question. One of the last questions. Like, okay, if we get these 5 rocks done, if it's 5, and we articulate what is, really what does done look like? So you don't have scope creep and what have you. Really articulate what does done look like for that quarter. Are we going to be happy with that? Are we going to be glad that we spent the time in these 5? If there's anyone here that would be like, yeah, what was the point? Okay, why is it a rock? So
Great. Another point you just mentioned that I don't want to leave out is that if you are a leader that leads with lots of power and authority, and you ask your leadership team to come into planning, don't expect them to push back on you and be extremely valuable in that meeting. You need to empower your leadership team in that room, in that moment, to be an equal, to have an equal voice, to be able to push back. Something we learned very early on, and having that as a safe place where you can really wrestle, like you mentioned, through some of those issues makes that meeting that much more productive.
couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And really watch your team. Some folks they're always the one that are quick to speak up. They'll dominate the whole time if you let them. And others, they have a lot to say, but they're never going to be the first one to speak up. And just make sure you have room to hear from everybody's voice in the room and speak it almost as little as you have to keep things going.
Yeah, there's an art to having a successful planning, and I appreciate your insights as it relates to the agenda and everything involved there. Is there anything else that you would recommend for someone listening to this, thinking about maybe doing their annual planning for the first time or doing it in a new way? Anything else they should think about?
Make it fun. I'm not great at the fun aspect. I'm more
Oh, you're a
prone to.
ball of fun, Jeff.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, thanks. Uh, I love business. I love numbers. Me and my CFO, we get along great, and I love having fun. But I'm not the guy who's going to come up with fun activities. So we have people on our leadership team that do. I'm like, can you? What could we do that would be fun? And we might go kart racing at this next planning. Actually, as a result of that question, so which would be fun. I love that. I never would have came up with that idea on my own, but that's important. And just make sure you have people that are complementing. They have strengths that complement your weaknesses, and vice versa.
Anything else that we may have left out or that someone should think about as they're going into their annual planning season this year?
Well, just what I already said, less is more. Do fewer goals, fewer rocks.
100%. Yeah, I think I would. The only thing I would add is be really intentional and be really prepared beforehand. You don't want to come to that meeting and say, "Okay, well, let's start from the beginning and figure everything out in here." You're never going to get done.
That's a really, really good point, Tyler. I learned that earlier in my career. The leader of the meeting should be spending quite a bit of time preparing for the meeting, just out of respect to the teammates that are showing up, so that you could have a constructive meeting right off the bat.
It's great, gentlemen. Appreciate your time and insights. Looking forward to the next one already.